Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So, tomorrow we have the headline, so you know what time it is. Time to speculate. But before we jump to that, if you guys are new here, as always, I'm Chrono. I primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe as we work towards that 10K mark, hopefully, by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So we have spent a lot of money recently on not only our gear, but a bunch of fashion stuff, and the headline is right around the corner. Now I'm considering personally swapping a few things out on my unit to eke out a little bit more power, mostly for the fun of it. Is it necessary? No. But do I like doing more damage? Absolutely. That's the entire reason I gear up in the first place. It's where I find the most fun in the game, so it's what I'm going to probably work on and do. So we might just swap out that High Kavar Domina. We'll see how things go. However, as far as what's on the horizon, let us pop over and take a look at what we know is coming, and then we could talk about what we think might be coming. All right, so here we are on the headline page. The headline page does usually give you some information in the in the description, so you can mostly find out what's going to be going on based on that. Though they have recently kind of changed the formula a little bit here and there, so it's a lot less obvious where things are going. We kind of have an idea, but we don't know for certain. And contrary to popular belief, the roadmap does not give the entire picture. It gives a very, very vague outline of what's to be expected. So let's see what they actually talk about. So this program delivers latest news surrounding SEGA's latest popular online RPG, PSO2NGS, or NGS for short. And it kills me. NGS. NGS. And people still say NG all the time, and I don't know, it feels weird to say NG. I know they want to say New Genesis, so NG, but like they have said NGS since the very start. I know they don't do NG because like new games usually NG, so yeah, it's a branding thing, but like, y'all feel weird, right? Yes, feel okay saying NG? It just feels weird, man. Anyway, here are I, the official navigator for NGS, will be updating players around the world about creating operations, current operations, future updates, interesting campaigns, and other related topics. And this update will be sharing information about the version 2 update scheduled for release on the 31st. And in August, including info on future collabs, along with some videos. Finally, to get the answers to your comments and questions, as well as a message from the development team during our Operation Report segment. This broadcast will be streamed live, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So this will be at 8 a.m. PDT for me, 5 a.m. for my Pacific Coast homies. So what can we expect? And from this, we know we have, they're going to talk about what's going to be released literally the next day, right? Well, no, I guess they're going to talk about what's released the next week, because it says it was released on the 31st. So not the day after, so not Wednesday, but the week following that. And then of course the August stuff that we have coming out. We see information on the collabs. We already know what the next collab is. It's Shangri-La Frontier. If you haven't watched it, it's super fun. The main character looks a bit goofy, but he's actually fairly serious. Super hardcore gamer type dude. It's a VR MMO. So super, super cool. Overall, like just storyline, I mean, just everything about the anime is actually really, the only thing that's kind of goofy is the character. Everything else is cool, right? Like the actual storyline itself, the concepts, all of the fights, the animation, like all that stuff's cool. Just the main character looks goofy, and it was weird for me at first to kind of get into the anime because of that look. Like I'm not a big fan of those goofy style characters, but dude like oozes MMO player. It's kind of funny, so it's a lot of fun to watch. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely recommend checking it out. Well, we have the collab. It's going to be a lot of Sunraku items, I imagine. We'll see a lot of the main characters overall, so I'm expecting to probably spend a ton more Meseta on probably all the dashes and glides and whatever they decide they want to do or bring over. And you guys can have the funny bird head if that's what you really want. Outside of that, I don't think we'll be seeing information about Mars in this, because we kind of already saw the information about Mars. We already know kind of what it's about, and we know that's coming out. Let me actually, hold on one sec. So I stand corrected. I assumed Mars was coming out tomorrow. It actually is probably going to come out on the 31st. So with that, they likely will show off a little bit more for Mars. Maybe some more of the interface, maybe some of the what's the word I'm looking for here? the different weapon selections and things like that. That might be part of the overall headline. So that does get me a little bit less hype, because like we already know about Mars. We know Mars is coming. Some more information about Mars, I'd rather just kind of have it at this point. It's kind of been long enough. So a little bit of a bummer there. They're likely going to talk about Mars quite a bit since it's coming out on the 31st, likely, since it's not even on the update list here. We have just the Alio Purple Battle Dia, which is cool for those who want to do more Purple Battle Dia stuff. But like, it's also the week that we'll be farming a ton of PSE bursts, since it is premium PSO2 week. So, I mean, maybe that's going to be your farm. Maybe you're going to be farming money to Tramaseta. It just depends on what you guys decide you want to do. So we know that's coming. We know Mars is coming. And then based on this, we know we've got Ordinal Tower expansion, ultra high difficulty party quests. So that should be interesting. Nameless City expansion, Lucille exploration expansion, and new rank of Alio stuff coming out. So of course, new cards, and then of course this stuff here. So that is what's scheduled for the 31st to September. That's likely what's going to get talked about. Well, they said August specifically, so it's not going to be all of this stuff. So we're going to see some of these things likely in here. My guess is we're going to see some more stuff about Mars. We'll likely see some Nameless City exploration expansion stuff. Probably see the high rank for Alio. If we're lucky, maybe either Ordinal Tower or Lucille, one of the two. I think maybe Lucille to go with the Mars stuff, because they're probably going to have Lucille modifiers for Mars. That way players can use Mars a lot more often and have a reason to go into Lucille. But we also need a reason to go into Lucille, and the reason to go into Lucille would be like a new weapon or new armor. So keep in mind, there's a good chance we might start to see new weapons, new armor show up, but don't freak out just yet, because there's not a guarantee those weapons and armor are going to be better than what we have. If we do see a new weapon and armor, it is about time, to be perfectly honest. We haven't had a new weapon and armor for quite some time that is actually stronger than what we're currently using. So it is understandable if we start to see those start to pop up, which is why I'm going to hold off on waiting to upgrade a little bit more of my gear at the moment. Granted, we have the augmentation transfer system. However, we don't know how that's going to interact with future gear. So it's a wait and see situation. Weapons are probably pretty safe, but armor is something that a lot of people are concerned about, at the very least for right now. And now we can move further into, well, I guess this is mostly just speculation at this point, but I'm kind of excited to see how they decide to do with these different areas. I want to see Ordinal Tower kind of move into a place where it's a bit more randomized, because the same missions over and over again, very, very dry, I mean, again, it's good for speedrunning because it's consistent, but I love my speedrunners. We need more for the general public in general. Like this has to be a bit more randomized. At this point, Lucille isn't even randomized enough to like be interesting every single run, right? It's the same thing for an entire day, and you would think, yeah, daily it repeats or it changes, but like that's not enough. It needs to be something that's a bit more randomized overall. And yeah, you can get some of the same layouts. That's something that happened a lot in Divide. However, you don't know what run you're going into, and that's what keeps it mostly fresh. That and the reward system, though I personally do like all of the resources that we get. We need substantial reward that players can see major gains very quickly and early on. Though the actual breakdown of items that we see are usually very, very useful, and if you're gathering them up and then building them up, they actually do help out in the long run. A lot of players don't think like this, and they're not going to see that. And if they just see a bunch of different items they already have a bunch of, they're never going to put these together and say, oh, well, this is actually very useful. So I think for the overall health of the game, the better choice is going to be to put more substantial combined like rewards into these systems at maybe a little bit lesser of a drop rate, and then push a system where something similar to that of Lucille exploration, where we're spending time farming out a resource or maybe even a drop that we need to build up a weapon or something along those lines. I personally believe that the drops we get from Lucille, like the weapons and the units, come way too fast. Like this is something that you should want to farm to build up your weapon and your units. And then that should also translate into other pieces of content, into Ordinal Tower, into Nameless City, into some of the more difficult like content that we get later on down the line, new bosses and things of that sort. Make it like a resource that we build up, and then we actually take that resource and trade them in for the weapons we want to get and actually be able to make. Granted, it should be a bit grindy, not too grindy, but a decent amount grindy that, you know, you can sink your teeth into some content for a decent amount of time, because a lot of these things are pretty fun to do. Lucille is fun, it's just not really worth the time you put into it anymore, because you really have everything you need from it at a very, very quick rate. You don't need most of the stuff that's there anymore. Nameless City, also really fun, actually a very fun piece of content, but realistically speaking, unless you're farming it during boosts when you want to get Arati souls to go ahead and sell on the market, you're not getting a lot out of it that you absolutely need. There was gear in there that you kind of like built up and built in towards, it would be a bit different, but that's not really the case. Maybe they're going to do something like that with Mars with Nameless, but we'll have to see. And then of course the Ordinal Tower, it was okay the first couple of times, but it just stagnated very quickly. I liked seeing the different style of rooms that they used in Ordinal Tower in the first few floors, where we kind of had like a VR version of some of the areas. Like those were really, really cool. And I wanted them to keep doing that in different areas and cycling them around. And it would have been a really, really fun interaction. Maybe you have different stages where you fight certain bosses. Maybe you pick between those different bosses. There's certain multipliers and modifiers and all that good stuff. Like those things would have been super cool, instead of a very stagnant, you pick the best modifiers, you fight the boss itself, and you know what boss you're going in there fight every single time. Again, great for speed running, really, really dull for everything else. I would love to see that change, be a bit more randomized, be a bit more interesting overall, and then see some of those drops be like a bit more of the unicorn drop in there, be in there. Right now, we're in a very, very stagnant point where nothing is worth anything really. It's not even worth making the capsules right now that you use in your best in slot gear. Half the capsules are cheaper than the actual materials that it takes to make them. It's cheaper. It's better to sell the materials, which is bad for both people involved. It's bad for people who want to make the capsules to use them on their gear. It's not worth them making the capsules. They're better off farming money and then buying the capsules to then put on their gear. It's not worth for people who can actually farm the materials to make the capsules. They're better off selling the actual base items than actually making the bigger capsules. So this is something that I want to see happen. And this is less of like my predictions for this and more of like my hopes for this, right? This is the Hopium. This isn't the Copium. The Copium comes after we find out none of these things happen, right? And then we're like, it's still okay. Then that's when you're coping. That's the Copium. This is the Hopium, that they actually kind of implement these things in here. But if we don't talk about them, then no one will, right? So hopefully that's something we see. Limited time quests. LTQ's been pretty good. So, I mean, LTQs are LTQs. I think that's totally fine. I'm not a big fan of Crimson Realm. I know some people are. They do like Crimson Realm, but I don't like Crimson Realm very much. I think it's kind of lame, kind of boring. But that's just me personally. I think it's better than farming PSEs normally, but the only good place to farm PSEs, in my opinion, are Alnoth and Deck Space, because that's where you make the most money. So farming PSEs for drops just does not feel good. It just doesn't. That's just kind of how I feel about it. That's mostly it. That's pretty much all I have to say as far as like what I foresee coming. I do think it's about time for us to see new weapons. I do think it's about time for us to see new units. I really don't want to see EX units. Like I really, really don't want to see EX units. I'm praying we don't see EX units, but at some point we probably will. And it's gonna be a massive spike of power, like massive. All right. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you guys today. If there's anything that I left out, any predictions you guys might have, I'd love to read about them in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed the video. Thanks again to the channel members. You guys are fantastic, and I appreciate every single one of you. Take care, my friends. Peace out.